The sleek walls of Chronolab hummed with the low, persistent vibration of machinery that could bend time itself. Dr. Lemin ran his fingers through his disheveled hair, staring at the gleaming titanium shell of the arc timer. 5 years of work, countless sleepless nights. And now they stood at the precipice of something truly revolutionary. "System check complete," announced Chrono, the lab's AI assistant, its neutral voice echoing through the cavernous underground facility. "All parameters within acceptable range." Min nodded, his eyes reflecting the blue glow of the control panel. It was 2125, and humanity had finally conquered time travel, at least in theory. The arc timer represented the pinnacle of quantum engineering, capable of sending matter backward through the temporal stream with unprecedented precision. So far, they had only tested with inanimate objects, but the results were promising. "Are we really doing this today?" Dr. Mai Han asked, her clipboard pressed tightly against her chest. As the team's ethics specialist, she had spent months drafting protocols for human trials, each one more cautious than the last. "Just a 5-minute jump," Min replied, his excitement barely contained. "We've run the simulations 1,000 times. The quantum stabilizers will prevent any significant timeline disruption." From across the room, Engineer Tran Tuan looked up from his terminal. "The board expects results. Min, we've been promising a breakthrough for months." His fingers danced across the keyboard, making final adjustments to the machine's programming. Min knew Tuan was right. The Global Science Council had invested trillions into Chronolab, and patience was wearing thin. They needed a tangible success, something beyond theoretical models and limited object transfers. "Chrono, initiate the arc timer sequence," Min commanded, stepping toward the circular platform at the center of the machine. 5-minute retrograde jump. Target, this exact location, 11:42 a.m. Initiating sequence. Chrono confirmed. Quantum field stabilization in progress. Warning, this is the first human temporal displacement attempt. Proceed with caution. Han moved closer, her expression tight with concern. "Remember the protocols. Don't interact with yourself. Don't alter anything. Just observe. Then return immediately." Min gave her a reassuring smile. "I'll be back before you know it. Or rather, I'll be back before I even left." The platform beneath him began to glow with an unearthly blue light. The air crackled with energy as the quantum field established itself around his body. Min closed his eyes, bracing for whatever sensation might accompany time displacement. Temporal coordinates locked, Chrono announced. Commencing jump in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into a blinding white light. Min felt a curious stretching sensation, as if every atom in his body was being gently pulled apart and reassembled. There was no pain, only a profound disorientation that seemed to last both an instant and an eternity. When the light faded, Min found himself standing on the same platform. The lab looked identical, almost. The wall clock read 11:42 a.m., 5 minutes earlier, just as planned. But something was wrong. The clock's normally white digits now glowed a faint red. And where was everyone? Han and Tuan should be standing exactly where they had been 5 minutes ahead, yet the lab was empty. "Chrono!" Min called out, stepping off the platform. "Yes, Dr. Lemin." The AI responded, its voice somehow different, a barely perceptible change in inflection. "Where is everyone?" "Dr. Mai Han is in her office reviewing ethics protocols. Engineer Tran Tuan is in the server room running diagnostics. Would you like me to call them?" Min frowned. That wasn't right. They had been here, watching him depart. Unless... Chrono. What is the status of the Arc Timer project? The Arc Timer is currently in final testing phase. First human trial is scheduled for 11:47 a.m. today. A chill ran down Min's spine. He rushed to the nearest terminal and pulled up the system logs. There, blinking at the bottom of the screen, was something he had never seen before. Temporal anomaly detected. Timeline divergence confirmed. Designation, timeline, impossible. Min whispered. The quantum stabilizers were supposed to prevent this exact scenario. He wasn't just traveling back in time. He had created an entirely new branch of reality. Before he could process this revelation, the doors to the lab slid open, and Tuan walked in, carrying a tablet. Hey, I thought you were preparing for the jump, Tuan said casually, then stopped, noting Min's expression. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Tuan, Min said slowly. What would you say if I told you I've already made the jump? Tuan laughed. I'd say you need more sleep. We're not scheduled to attempt it for another... He checked his watch. 5 minutes. Min pointed to the terminal screen. Look at this. Tuan's eyes widened as he read the log entries. Timeline B? That's not possible. The stabilizers apparently don't work as advertised. Min finished. I've created a branch reality by going back just 5 minutes. The implications were staggering. If a 5-minute jump could create an alternate timeline, what would happen with longer journeys? The entire theoretical framework of temporal mechanics might need to be reconsidered. We need to run more tests. Min decided, his scientific curiosity overriding caution. But carefully, I need to understand exactly what happened. Over the next several days, Min conducted a series of controlled experiments, each one revealing more about the nature of temporal branching. A 10-minute jump created Timeline C. 30 minutes resulted in Timeline D. Each new branch seemed stable, but distinctly different from the original. The changes were subtle at first, the color of a wall, the arrangement of furniture, small variations in the day's schedule. But as Min ventured further back, the divergences became more pronounced. In one timeline, Han had never joined the project. In another, the lab's funding had come from a different source entirely, changing the entire direction of their research. This is getting dangerous, Han warned during an emergency meeting 1 week after the first jump. The 3 scientists sat in the conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the proliferating timeline branches. We're creating entire alternate realities with each experiment. The ethical implications are beyond anything we prepared for. But think of the possibilities. Tuan countered, his eyes bright with excitement. We could create branches where humanity avoided its greatest mistakes, prevent wars, ecological disasters, or create worse ones. Han interrupted. Each new timeline is an uncontrolled experiment with billions of lives at stake. Min remained silent, torn between fascination and growing unease. The scientist in him wanted to push further, to map the limits of this discovery. But he couldn't ignore the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. We need to find a way to merge the timelines, he said finally, or at least stabilize them. The branching can't continue indefinitely. Is that even possible? Tuan asked. Min didn't know. The theoretical models had never accounted for this scenario, but he had to try. The next morning, Min arrived at the lab to find it subtly changed again. The security system accepted a different password than the one he remembered setting. The hallways seemed wider, the lighting cooler. When he reached the main lab, he found Han already there, but her hair was cut differently, and she wore a lab coat with an unfamiliar insignia. Timeline drift. Min muttered to himself. Reality was becoming unstable. The boundaries between branches growing thin. What was that? Han asked, looking up from her work. Nothing. Min replied quickly. Just thinking aloud. How's the stabilization protocol coming along? Han gave him a strange look. What stabilization protocol? Min's heart sank. In this timeline, they hadn't even begun addressing the problem. He was losing track of which reality was which. His memories a jumble of conflicting versions. Chrono, he called out. Show me the current timeline designation. Current designation, Timeline J. The AI responded. Divergence point, 3 days ago, 9:17 a.m. Timeline J? Min had only documented up to Timeline G in his personal records. He was losing control of the situation faster than he realized. We need to shut everything down, he announced, moving toward the main power controls. What are you talking about? Han stood up, alarmed. We're scheduled for a major demonstration tomorrow. The board members are already en route. You don't understand. Min tried to explain. We've created multiple timeline branches. Reality is becoming unstable. If we don't stop now... The floor beneath them shuddered violently, cutting off his words. The lights flickered, then turned a deep crimson. Every screen in the lab suddenly displayed the same message. Critical temporal anomaly. Multiple timeline convergence imminent. Seeking prime timeline. What's happening? Han demanded, gripping the edge of her desk as another tremor shook the building. Time storm. Min whispered, the term coming to him instinctively. The branches are colliding. The air itself seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. Objects around the lab began to shift, sometimes subtly changing shape or color, sometimes disappearing entirely, only to reappear moments later. Tuan burst into the lab, his face pale. The entire complex is destabilizing. Some sections are reporting architecture that was never built, equipment we never installed. Min rushed to the arc timer's control panel. The quantum core was pulsing erratically, its containment field fluctuating as reality itself became uncertain. Chrono, run emergency temporal stabilization protocol, Min commanded. No such protocol exists in current database. The AI replied, its voice now distorted, echoing as if multiple versions were speaking simultaneously. The tremors intensified. Through the lab's reinforced windows, Min could see the corridor outside shifting, its geometry impossible. Doorways leading to places that couldn't exist within the building structure. We need to reset. Min realized, the solution suddenly clear. Return to the prime timeline and lock it down before the branches fully materialize. How? Han asked, desperately trying to make sense of the chaos. Min's fingers flew across the control panel, bypassing safety protocols and accessing the arc timer's core programming. If I can send a quantum signal back to the moment before my first jump, with instructions to abort, we might be able to collapse all the branches back into the original timeline. That's never been tested, Tuan protested, even as he moved to help. Understanding the dire necessity, nothing about this has been tested. Min replied grimly, but it's our only chance. Together, they worked feverishly, programming a temporal beacon while reality continued to fracture around them. Equipment would transform mid-use, forcing them to adapt constantly. At one point, Han disappeared entirely for several terrifying minutes, then reappeared with no memory of the event. Finally, the beacon was ready. Min loaded it into the Arc-Timer's quantum core, setting it to transmit to the exact coordinates of the first jump. "This will erase everything that's happened since then," he warned. "All these branches, all our discoveries, gone." "Will we remember any of it?" Han asked. Min shook his head. "I don't think so. If it works, we'll revert to our prime timeline selves, with no knowledge of these alternate realities." Another violent tremor rocked the lab, more severe than any before. A crack appeared in the reinforced ceiling, spreading rapidly. "We're out of time," Tuan said, steadying himself against a console. "Do it." Min took a deep breath and entered the final command. Prime reset. The Arc-Timer's core blazed with blinding light, consuming the lab, the building, the fractured reality itself. Min felt his consciousness stretching, thinning, then snapping back like an overstretched rubber band. And then, nothing. Min blinked, momentarily disoriented. He was standing in the main lab, hand poised over the control panel of the Arc-Timer. The wall clock read 11:42 a.m. Han and Tuan were watching him expectantly. "Well?" Tuan prompted. "Are we doing this or not?" Min stared at them, then at the machine. Everything was normal. The clock digits glowed white, not red. The lab was exactly as it should be. No sign of temporal distortion, no warning messages on the screens. "Chrono," he said cautiously. "What is the status of the Arc-Timer project?" "Final preparations for first human trial are complete." The AI responded, its voice perfectly normal. "Awaiting your command to proceed." Min felt a strange unease, a phantom memory he couldn't quite grasp. Everything seemed right. Yet something warned him to be careful. He noticed a small notepad beside the control panel, his personal journal where he recorded thoughts and observations. A single line was written at the top of the otherwise blank page. "Always be cautious with what you change." The handwriting was his own, but he had no recollection of writing it. "Min!" Han's voice broke through his thoughts. "Is something wrong?" He looked up at his colleagues, then back at the Arc-Timer. The machine hummed quietly, ready to make history, but at what cost? "I think," he said slowly, "we need to reconsider our approach." Later that day, Min stood before the Global Science Council, presenting his recommendation. The Arc-Timer project should be suspended indefinitely. The technology worked. Their tests with objects proved that. But the risks were too great, the variables too numerous. The mathematics suggests potential timeline instability with human subjects. He explained, carefully omitting the inexplicable warning he'd found in his own handwriting. "Until we better understand the quantum mechanics involved, proceeding with human trials would be irresponsible." The council members were disappointed, but accepted his assessment. They authorized a new research direction: passive temporal observation without physical displacement. It wasn't as glamorous as true time travel, but it was safer. As Min left the council chambers, Han fell into step beside him. "You did the right thing," she said. "But I'm curious, what really changed your mind this morning? You were so eager to make the jump." Min considered telling her about the strange note, the feeling of déjà vu that had gripped him at the crucial moment. Instead, he simply smiled. "Let's just say I had a feeling we shouldn't mess with humans' timelines." Back at Chronolab, the Arc-Timer was being reconfigured for its new more limited purpose. Min stood watching the technicians work, a peculiar sense of both loss and relief washing over him. On the machine's quantum core display, 3 zeros glowed softly, a reading that made no sense according to the current programming. Yet, somehow, Min knew it was significant, a marker of something averted, a silent testament to paths not taken. Timeline 000, he whispered to himself. The only one we need. As the years passed, Dr. Lemin's decision became a case study in scientific ethics. The arc timer never transported a human through time, but its observational capabilities revolutionized historical research, allowing scholars to witness, but never interact with, events of the past. Occasionally, Min would wake from dreams of impossible timelines, fractured realities where the laws of physics bent and broke. Dreams where he made different choices, saw different outcomes. He never wrote these dreams down, never spoke of them to anyone. But sometimes, late at night in his office, he would take out that single sheet of paper with its cryptic warning and wonder about the version of himself who might have written it, a self from a timeline that no longer existed, reaching across the void to prevent a catastrophe. And in those moments, he knew he had made the right choice. Some barriers weren't meant to be broken, some powers not meant for human hands. Time would keep its deepest secrets, flow in its single, precious stream. The arc timer's legacy wasn't in conquering time, but in respecting its mysteries. And for Dr. Lemin, that was enough. In the archives of Chronolab, sealed behind triple encrypted locks, a single data crystal contained the full theoretical framework for human temporal displacement. Future generations might rediscover it, might solve the problems Min's team couldn't. They might even succeed where he had chosen to step back. But attached to the crystal was a simple message, the last entry in Min's official research log. To those who follow, proceed with caution. The universe gives us second chances rarely, and timelines, once broken, leave scars across reality itself. What you hold is not just technology, but responsibility. Choose wisely which future and which past you wish to create. And somewhere, in a timeline that both existed and didn't, in a possibility both realized and averted, the numbers on a lab wall clock slowly faded from red back to white, as the cosmos healed itself once more,